Kane County Human Service Press Conference, co-sponsored by the Central Kane and Elgin Area Leagues of Women Voters. I really wish we would stop meeting this way. We have until June 30th to pass a fully funded budget for 2017, and we're thrilled that Senator Linda Holmes and Representative Stephanie Kiflewit have joined us. You stand up and... All of our representatives and senators will be sent links to the press conference as well as news articles from our reporters who are here. Certainly we're concerned about all people living in the county. The Tribune mentioned on Sunday how the budget impasse is disproportionately affecting women with low-income college tuition grant programs, intervention services for infants and toddlers with disabilities, home visits for teen mothers, parental and family care management for at-risk mothers, and breast and ovarian cancer screenings. Now, 7 months ago, we had our first press conference, and it was hard at that point to imagine if the impasse lasted this long, what we would be seeing. Kane recently wrote, "In just 8 short months, the work that these nonprofits took decades to establish is being disseminated. The sector is now unable to provide adequate services as organizations close or scale back, and highly trained talent leaves the sector and the state." So today we have updates from the service providers and also some of the people affected by the impasse. And after that, we'll allow questions from the press and then finally open it up to the audience. So, we had hoped that Julia McClendon could join us from the YWCA, but their organization is getting an audit right now. So I'll mention a few things that are going on there. She reported that over 525 current clients have been affected by the budget impasse. There's no English as a second language classes, no Teen Reach, and limited family literacy classes. The same article in Crane's Business reported that the elimination of Teen Reach is related to the fact that there's a 40% increase in juvenile prison population. Over 450 new people have been turned away by the YWCA from adult education classes, and they're reducing staff monthly. As a result, there's low morale and uncertainty. I'm afraid you may be hearing some of these themes repeated by other people on the panel. So now I would like to introduce Ryan Dowd from Hesed House to tell us what's happening there.
Thank you. So Hesed House, for some context, is the second largest homeless shelter in the state, but we're so much more. We're trying to offer all the services people need to get back on their feet again. I want you to imagine that you got home and you came home to your place and there was an eviction notice on the door. And you've been told you've got 8, you've got 15, you've got 20 days till you have to leave your place, and then you're going to be out on the street. Now, I want you to imagine the 3 different scenarios for that. One is that you got that eviction notice on June 22nd, 2015. Here's what would have happened. You'd get on the phone, you'd call Hesed House, you'd say, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the verge of eviction. My family's going to be homeless. My children are going to be homeless. What do I do?" Now, if you'd called us this time last year with that scenario, we would have said, "Take a deep breath. We can help you. We have a homelessness prevention program. We can work with your landlord. We can try to slow down the eviction. We can get you some assistance to pay your rent till you get stabilized. Don't worry, you will never, ever, ever see the streets or a homeless shelter." That's what would have happened June 22nd, 2015. June 22nd, 2016, you make that same call to us and we say, "When do you get evicted?" And you would tell us and we say, "We'll see you then. We'll save a bed for you." Homelessness prevention is virtually eliminated at Hesed House at this point because of the state budget crisis. In the past, whereas we would try to prevent people from ever becoming homeless, we don't have the ability to do that. We just simply wait for them to become homeless. And so entire families, tons of individuals are coming to us who never, ever, never needed to see the shelter. What's even more terrifying, though, is if this continues another year, which obviously seems nonsensical, but a year is nonsensical too. If you call us June 22nd, 2017, and this is continuing on 10, I have no idea what we will tell you. This year we'll tell you we'll save a spot in the shelter. Next year we might tell you this is the parks that we know that the police allow people to sleep in. These are the places where people can sleep outside. These are the bridges that seem the safest to sleep under. I have absolutely no idea what we'll be telling people. This is in a matter of 1 year, we go from preventing people from becoming homeless, to providing them shelter. Another year, I don't know what that looks like. It's absolutely getting absurd. The volume of people that we're seeing with deep mental health issues is completely overwhelming our system at this point. We're having to completely revisit how we do everything because we simply don't have the resources to serve people that are coming to us right now. It's getting scary.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Next is Lynn O'Shea, President and CEO of the Association for Individual Development.
Thank you, Jean. Well, I agree with Ryan. Who would have ever thought we would still be without a state budget and wondering how much longer this is going to take to resolve. When the budget impact first happened about a year ago, we had already had to institute a number of budget saving and cost saving measures because our state Medicaid, which is our #1 funding source, has not increased for mental health services in terms of a per unit payment in 15 years. Not even a cost of living adjustment for 15 years. This is before the budget crisis. On our developmental disability side, it's been nearly 10 years since we have had an increase in our Medicaid rates. That is before the budget crisis. Now we have the budget crisis that began at the end of FY15 when a number of contracts were not even reissued to ARD. There is not even a hope that we will ever get those funds restored. And that included our grant for Medicaid, psychiatric services, so being able to pay for psychiatrist care has greatly diminished. Fundraising dollars is really all we can utilize at this point to help provide psychiatric care. Our supportive housing grant, keeping people in housing and off the streets and out from under the bridges, that was another almost $400,000 in grants that never even were offered to us. We've never seen that again. And of course, those folks who are not eligible for Medicaid, either because they're working poor, they can't afford Medicaid, or maybe they're undocumented. We have a number of those here in Aurora. They don't even qualify for Medicaid, and all of those grants were eliminated. So we had over $1 million in grants not even offered beginning in July of last year. And then, of course, last year, we had another $1.4 million in grants that were awarded but are not paid because there is no state budget. So the impact in terms of those grants totals over $2.4 million, plus the state owes us other back Medicaid payments and other payments that total nearly $3 million. Our receivables are nearly $3 million right now. How are we making it? It's very tough. The hardest impact has been on our staff. Our staff have not had raises in years. Our staff benefits have been dramatically cut. There is virtually no retirement plan left. We had to cut nearly all of that out. Paid time off is greatly diminished. And yet our staff are still here. I don't know why. Thank God they care about the people they serve, and they come here because it's the right thing to do. We had to put our alcohol and substance abuse outpatient program on hold, so 45 people no longer get that alcohol and substance abuse treatment. Our respite program we terminated, or at least put on hold at March 31st because there were no funds for those 110 families can't get service anymore. Our supported employment program, the amount of money available for that was greatly reduced, and so now people are getting jobs, so they're not self-supporting, so now more unemployment. This is not saving money, it's costing money, which is really kind of crazy when you think about it. And our, as I said, our psychiatric services were reduced, although we are doing our best to support what we can through fundraising and other sources. Our lawn maintenance training program for people with disabilities had to be put on hold. Our early intervention program for youngsters with developmental delays had to be put on hold. And our waiting list for supportive housing continues to grow. Each year, we have in Kane County over 1,500 people waiting for services on the state PUNS list, registered with the state. If approximately 300 to 500 names are pulled off that list statewide, about 30 or 40 for our county, we can't even hold our own in the number of people waiting. More people go on the list than come off the list every year. We're already at a perfect storm, and now we don't even have a state budget. So the impact on our organization has been dramatic. We're trying to maintain services by borrowing, fundraising, not filling positions, freezing positions, so the quality of the service is lower, trying to hold our own in that regard, and then staff training and other things that aren't quite as important are being put on hold. And we thought it might be helpful for you to hear from a couple of the clients we serve about those things that they would like to see happen. And Ryan, would you like to come up and talk to us for a minute? Come up to the podium. Thanks, Ryan.
This bill for wage increase of $15 an hour, the governor needs to sign this bill so we can find good quality staff to work with us. It is very sad when staff starts and leave so soon because of the low wages. Please sign the USD wage bill today. Help us get better staff and keep them working with us.
Thank you, Ryan. Ryan's talking about Senate Bill 2038, the DSP wage bill that has been proposed and was passed by the General Assembly on May 31st. So we're hoping, yeah, it was passed, but we need the governor to sign it. So we're urging the governor to sign the direct support wage bill. Right now, people working directly with our clients make less than $10 an hour. And that has not really changed in, well, almost a decade. People can make more working at almost anywhere now than working with people with disabilities, and that is a tough job. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. So we're urging the governor to sign the DSP wage bill increase. Thank you, Ryan. We also have Ben who wants to say something. Ben Breslero, would you like to come on?
Yes, the SB 2038 stop cap funding must be signed July 17th. Please save our services. If you care about the people with disabilities, the governor needs to sign bill. We do want our services to stop. We need to help our support to become independent community where we live. Save our services. The SB 38 stopgap funding for human services currently sitting on the governor's desk. For the action of this bill, we sent the governor on May 18th. You must act by July 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? I was at the ravioli dinner, and I got to see Chairman Kane, and Chairman Kane has set up with me and my mom that my Aunt Candace, she works out of Chicago, and maybe I can go down with my Aunt Candace, that I could write down with my Aunt Candace to advocate for AAD, and I'd like to meet Bruce Runner and to be on the phone with Cameron County, buy her lunch, and to make to say comments. I mean, like to side Bruce Runner and the fix our budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. commenting on Senate Bill 2038 that would provide $700 million to social service agencies for non-Medicaid programs that have been shut out ever since the beginning of the fiscal year. And it won unanimous approval in both the House and the Senate. It's on the governor's desk. It takes no new tax revenue. It's just shifting money from other funds to continue our services at about 42% of the amount that we're contracted for, but 42% is better than nothing. So we're urging the governor to sign the stopgap measure for human services bill, even though it's a partial solution. We'd rather have a full solution. We like what the league is promoting, but at least part of the money would be a good help and keep us from further eroding our services. Thank you very much.
And now, pleased to introduce Elisa, the Clinical Director of Mutual Ground.
Thank you. Mutual Ground provides services for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, and our experience tells us that the need for those services is not changing in our community. However, our ability to respond to the needs of victims is changing, and that's a hard thing to see. What we know is that we rely on state funding to support about a little over 30% of the work that we do, about 30% of our budget. And when I try to imagine ahead into FY17, what would that look like if we lost 30% of our funding, or if we had to reduce our services by that amount? And I asked myself, where would we take that from? Would we not serve people, would we not provide shelter for victims who are seeking safety? Is that where we could cut services? Or would we not provide counseling and advocacy for individuals who are in an unsafe environment and they're seeking safety, trying to get out, and they're looking for some guidance and support in making that transition? Or would we reduce services for victims of sexual assault who have experienced a significant trauma and they're trying to find their way through a complicated emotional and in some cases criminal legal experience? So how would we cut services, and where would we cut them? We've absorbed a lot of the challenges of this fiscal year. Our staff is working amazingly hard. They're taxed. They've absorbed a lot. We've not filled positions, and so somehow we have not had significant program cuts. However, it's starting to look like that may be the direction that we're headed, and the thought of where that would come from is kind of hard to imagine which door we would close and who we would say no to. So we stand together asking for a responsible budget in FY17 so that we can keep our doors open, so that we can continue to serve victims in their time of crisis, rather than asking them to be on a wait list, so that we can get to them when we're able. When it comes to safety of children, safety of families, immediacy is the goal, to respond right now. And wait lists don't work. We do have wait lists right now, and it's challenging, and it's hard to tell someone on the phone who's scared and unsafe and needing services that we'd be more than happy to take their name and put them on a wait list and help them when we can. But that doesn't that doesn't really help them. So things can change a lot. So we're looking for a budget, and we're hoping that we can get into FY17 and continue to provide services to individuals in our community who need them desperately. Thank you.
And now we have Carolyn Bailey, the Director of Psychiatric Emergency Programs and Crisis Residential at Ecker Center.
The Ecker Center for Mental Health is the community mental health center that serves the northern part of Kane County. We're based in Elgin, Illinois. Our service area goes down to about Geneva, so we're very definitely rooted in Kane County. And like AID, our funding, a lot of it is Medicaid, but we are dependent a lot on state grants as well as local support. And basically, the Ecker Center is currently owed over $800,000 in state grants. And we've only received a small portion of that, which is the federal money that's been passed through. So this has significantly impacted Ecker Center. We've had to close a Scylla group home. because that was not funded. In addition, we have eliminated over 18 positions, however, mostly through attrition. Although, as Lynn and everyone has pointed out, when staff are dealing with uncertainty, greatly reduced benefits, and there is a high turnover, this directly impacts client care, because it's that relationship and the continuity that is very important for helping people with mental health problems to recover. In addition, right now, the state has did not renew any grants for any non-Medicaid services, and this affects anyone who is not eligible for Medicaid due to undocumented status, but also we're finding people who, for whatever reason, are not renewing their Medicaid, or their lives are so chaotic that the renewal time comes around, they have lost their Medicaid benefits, and for that period of time, we cannot provide them services because we do not really have the Medicaid grant during that period, the non-Medicaid grant. In addition, psychiatric services have been extremely impacted because we are now receiving only about 30% of what it actually costs to provide adequate psychiatric services due to the low Medicaid reimbursement rate and the lack of these grants that we had depended on. And so we have had to drastically reduce our psychiatric hours, and we did lay off a full-time psychiatrist at Ecker Center. So there is much more of a wait to access those services. So I would just, also repeat that the Senate Bill 2038, which does say for those grants that the agencies such as Ecker Center for Mental Health are depending on, at least we will get the 46, or you said 42, but somewhere around that, that percentage of the grant money that will enable us to keep going into the next fiscal year. So, thank you.
So thank you very much. Let's open it up to questions from the press.
I don't know, what's standing in the way of you just not, maybe just closing your doors? No money, can't do anything. How close are you to that?
How close are we to closing our doors? Well, we are slowly reducing the amount of service we provide to people rather than just shutting things down. The only things that we've had to shut down so far, and we're saying we're putting them on hold. We're not really shutting them down, we're putting them on hold until money's available and we can reopen them. And that includes our respite program, which we terminated and put on hold. Back in March, 110 families who, the only thing they got was a few weeks of help a year so that they could get relief from the day-to-day caregiving for their disabled son or daughter. Another thing that we had to put on hold is the amount of job training and placement that we have been doing for individuals. We are not getting the amount of funding from the Department of Rehab Services we had in the past, so that is also on hold. Our psychiatric services, we're fundraising for that, and we're so grateful that our community has come to our aid, and they are providing resources so that we can keep our psychiatric services intact. Others have not been as lucky yet. Cornerstone down in southern Illinois and DeWitt County Mental Health Center both announced today that they're closing their outpatient services. They just can't do it anymore. So we saw something similar happen up in McHenry County. Pioneer Center closed all of their adult and children outpatient programs. They're not running psychiatric services anymore. They couldn't continue. Problems out in DeKalb County forced the Ben Gordon Center to basically turn over their services to their local hospital, which is now trying to run those services. C4 Community Counseling Center in Chicago basically had to close their doors. They're now somewhat absorbed by the Cook County Health Department, who tried to pick that up and continue those services. Everyone is hanging on by a thread, other than those that just didn't have the backup resources, the rainy day fund, so to speak, to carry them through this tough time. We do have a rainy day fund. It's helping us get through this tough time. We're hoping that 2038 will get passed, at least 42% of that money come in. And do we have a plan to try to keep everything open and not put anything else on hold? Yes, we do. We're hopeful that that will work. But you know, we are slowly decreasing the amount of service that we can provide. And we will continue to try to do our best until there's a solution.
And once again, it's easy to stop these things, far easier to stop them than to start them up again.
Hessedas is a similar situation. We just won't allow ourselves to go out of business with this, the only homeless shelter in the area. That's just not an option. What is an option, though, is to do very little to help people get out of homelessness. And so that's what's happening is we're preserving the core. People are going to get fed. They're going to get housed. They're just not necessarily going to get all the services they need to get back on their feet again. And so the homeless population is growing. And we're getting hit from both sides. Not only does the state's paid us, I was doing the math earlier, the state has paid us, $0 this year. I totally forgot where I was going with that. That's what I get for trying to insert a joke in there. We're preserving the core. Unfortunately, our ability to get people out is reducing, and because of that, we're getting hit on both sides. So both is our amount that we get to serve people is reduced, but also homelessness is caused by all the other systems failing. So when mental health fails, people become homeless. Substance abuse, people become homeless. Domestic violence, people become homeless. And so we're seeing not only more people, but more people with substantial issues, and then we've got less services to serve them. And so it's kind of this, we're kind of caught between the rock of us not being able to do more and the hard place of more and more people needing homeless services.
Could you, I'm sorry, Brian, you mentioned that you are seeing more people with really deep mental health issues. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what can Hesed House do? Is there anywhere to refer them to at this point, or is there worry that there won't be a place for them to go to get help?
So the percentage of people that have very, very significant mental health issues has gone up pretty dramatically. And it's really stretching our ability to handle that. We can handle a certain percentage of people with schizophrenia. We can't handle lots of people with schizophrenia. We're not a mental health agency. Quite honestly, the only reason we are even remotely surviving right now is because a deep, deep partnership with AID, where they've got multiple staff on site at Hesed House to help us out. Otherwise, we probably just have to say, we've got a quota. We can handle 3 people with schizophrenia. Everybody else cannot get in the door because we can't handle it. But AID has been a godsend.
Any other press questions? Then let's open it up to our legislators. Any questions that you people have?
Not questions, I can make a statement now.
Absolutely.
I can too.
I'll go to this podium. Good afternoon, my name's Stephanie Kickwood. I'm a state representative representing Aurora, Naperville, Oswego, and Montgomery. I've had the esteemed pleasure to work with AID when I was an alderman with the city of Aurora 9.5 years. I continue to work with them. Just this weekend we did a successful electronic recycling drive to try and get resources to AID. I'm appalled when the governor called his staff heroic for making it through this budget crisis. The bottom line is these people at this press conference and these people in the room are the real heroes that are trying to serve the people that, through no fault of their own, fell upon hard times or just want to have a good quality of life and want to be productive people in this environment. The fact that the governor has not signed Senate Bill 2038, and in addition to that, Republican operatives are using that bill in negative mailers in Southern Illinois is downright disgusting. The bill needs to be signed. I proudly voted for the bill, and we need to do what we can to help our partners in our community. What we need is governing by the governor And we need him to stop making up excuses for why he's not signing this bill that helps so many people in our community. The bottom line is, we are in a society that should be of compassionate people and not a society of greed where money trumps all. We need to make sure that people in our society are taken care of. We need to make sure that we are properly funding, which is why I voted against the last budget proposal, because it did not properly fund. I'm standing up here today and I would gladly give an extra $20 out of my paycheck to help the people that need it, the people that our society should be reaching out their arms from, should be embracing and should be supporting. And the fact of the matter is that there are so many people focused on not properly funding what government needs to properly fund. When individuals come up to me and say, just stop spending, lives are lost, opportunities for quality of life are gone, and that makes our society cold and heartless. And it is time for a compassionate, responsible budget to be passed by the General Assembly, and it is time for the governor to work on a compassionate and responsible budget. Instead of wasting time in front of microphones, he should be working on having a solution that impacts so many people. So I stand with the people at this table. I stand with the people in this room. I proudly voted for 2038. I will continue to vote for funding for human services as I am a state representative, because it's the right thing to do, to have a properly funded, compassionate budget for our community and for our state. So I want to thank the individuals of the panel. I want to thank everybody here for taking the time out of their day. And I appreciate all the hard work of the true heroes of the state of Illinois, and that's our human service providers. Thank you very much.
Although I can be heard all the way across the room without a microphone, but anyway. I'm State Senator Linda Holmes. I also represent the same area that Representative Kifowit does, which is some areas of Oswego, some Naperville, the bulk of Aurora. I have some of North Aurora and a little bit of Montgomery. Unfortunately, I can't believe we're still here talking about this. This budget impasse, I don't even know how to go into detail on this, because it's been so devastating to so many. I mean, so much of the budget was actually covered by court orders and consent decrees, and we all know what wasn't covered in those court orders and consent decrees. And everyone says, well, gee, well, the only thing that really wasn't covered was social services. Wow. Doesn't that make sense? And we need to look at how much more money this is ultimately costing us with what's happened. When you look at everything that is done, even if you want to be a truly cold-hearted, non-feeling businessman and say the state should run like a business, okay, fine. Let's take all human compassion out of it. I mean, I've always said in some ways the state should run like a business, but a business with a heart, because we do have obligations. We do need to take care of people who need to be taken care of. But let's put that aside right now. Let's have no compassion. Let's just look at dollars and cents. What happens when we do not cover services for those with mental illness? I will tell you right now, Ryan, you and I have talked about this in the past, that really, when did homeless shelters really get such an enormous bump in the number of people at them? It was years ago when we cut out so many services for those with mental illness. So doing that again is just loading more people into our homeless shelters. When we don't cover basic services for people with developmental disabilities, what happens? When you don't cover respite care and somebody says, I can't do this 24/7, I need a day every couple months where I can go make a doctor appointment. I can go have a day to myself. What happens when they can no longer do that? Guess what? Instead of somebody taking care of their loved one at home, what do? Put them in an institution? Okay, what is the dollar value when we put somebody in an institution versus taking care of them at home? So, is there money savings there? No, it's an extraordinarily large amount. You look at what happens with domestic violence. The thing that appalls me when you talk about cutting services, when you talk about not being able to take somebody in, do we understand the most dangerous, the absolute most dangerous time for a woman in a situation where she needs to get out is when she makes that decision to leave. So if she's made that decision to leave and she has no place to go, what happens then? Hopefully she manages to wait it out, and hopefully she actually survives. Because I will tell you right now, that is the time where she is most apt to either be badly beaten or be killed. But we're not going to cover those services. This is appalling. You look at Senate Bill 2038, which had huge support, both sides of the aisle. So yes, we know that even if the governor decides not to sign it, that one we should be able to override. The scary thing is if the governor decides to veto it, does he then get all of his Republicans, which have been pretty much in lockstep with them, to not support it? I would make sure to anybody, if you have any Republican representatives or senators, you make sure that you get to them and tell them that if that situation would be intolerable. They've got to finally have a little bit of a backbone and do what's right. This nonsense, this political game of holding people hostage for some little political power struggle has gone on long enough, and we know that who's being hurt in this? It's people. These are people's lives. This is not a game. It's frustrating for those of us who care about our communities and are there for the right reasons, trying to represent the best interests of our community. I will continue to do that. I will continue to advocate. I will continue to come out and do whatever you need me to do to help you as we move forward with this. But really, what needs to be done is we need a budget. If it ends up being a stopgap budget just to get us through until the election, because we're playing politics, at least hopefully it will do some funding to keep all of you doing the great work you do in our community. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I will continue to work on your behalf.
So I'd like to suggest on behalf of the league that there's a two-step process here. That before June 30th, we need all of the legislators and governor working on a fully funded budget. After that, any stopgap is great, but definitely 2038 is important. But our first priority as the League of Women Voters is to try to get a fully funded budget. And we have until June 30th for that.
What are the names of these bills? The numbers, are they both 2038?
No, just the fully funded budget is just asking people to talk together and work that out. I don't know that there is a particular bill number on that, but it's,
Didn't she just say it was Senate Bill 2038?
the partial funding for human services
For
is
the
Senate Bill
previous- the
2038.
Last year,
For
last year.
Fiscal year 2016.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience?
I would just like to say
Yes.
something. You know, as working in a mental health center, and has come out through our discussion here, human service providers have to cooperate. I mean, it is clear that homeless shelters, domestic violence shelters, mental health services for the developmentally disabled, the one service that's not as prevalent here is substance abuse. And I know that up at least in the northern part of the county, substance abuse services have been dramatically affected by the budget stalemate. And that makes it immensely difficult for a mental health center to do their job. And I'm sure that impacts homeless and domestic violence as well. So I just wanted to bring that up, that when one system is not working, all of the providers are affected.
Let's hope we don't have to have a third press conference like this and invite those people as
Yes.
well. Any others from the audience? Then I thank the panel for speaking so eloquently. I thank the press and our legislators for showing up, and I thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you very much.